Gone here by the Y High Drama Company. In it you will see Miss Giatissa, Mr. Shue, Miss Waldecker, Miss Summers, Mr. Higby, Miss Dotson, and many others. The name of the town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts line, latitude 42 degrees 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees 37 minutes. The first act shows a day in our town. The date is May 7th, 1901, and the time, just before dawn. The sky is starting to show some streaks of light off in the east there, just beyond our mountain. Morning star always gets wonderful bright, just a minute before it has to go, now doesn't it? Well, I've been to show you how our town lies. Up here is Main Street. Way back there is the railway station. Tracks go that way. Polish towns across the tracks and some Canuck families. Over here is the Congregational Church. Across the street is the Presbyterian, Methodist, and Unitarian are over there. The Baptists are down in the hollow by the river, and the Catholic Church is across the tracks. Over here is the Town Hall and Post Office combined, the jails and the basement. William Jennings Bryan once made a speech from these very steps. Along here is a row of stores, pitching posts and horse blocks in front of them. First automobile is going to come along in about 5 years. Belonged to Baker Cartwright, our town's richest citizen. Lives in a big white house up on the hill. Here's the grocery store, and here's Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Most everyone in town manages to look into these two stores once a day. Public school is over yonder. High school is still further over. 8:45 in the mornings, noon times, and 3 o'clock in the afternoons. The whole town can hear the yelling and screaming from those schoolyards. This is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. This is the back door, and there's some scenery for those of you who think they need to have scenery. This is Mrs. Gibbs's garden. We've got corn, peas, beans, hollyhocks, heliotrope, and a lot of burdock. In those days, town paper came out twice a week, the Grover's Corners Sentinel. This is Editor Webb's house, and this is Mrs. Webb's garden. It's the same as Mrs. Gibbs, only there's a lot of sunflowers too. And right here is a big butternut tree. Nice town, know what I mean? No one especially remarkable ever come out of it, not as far as we know. Earliest dates in the tombstones in the cemetery on the mountain say 1670, 1680. They're Grovers and Cartwrights and Gibbses and Hearses. Same names are around here now. Well, like I said, it's about dawn. Only lights in the town are in a cottage, just by the tracks, where a Polish mother has just given birth to 2 twins, and in the Joe Kroll house, where Joe Jr. is getting ready to deliver the paper, and in the depot, where Troy Hawkins is 5:45 for Boston. Now, naturally, out in the country, all around lights have been on for some time, what with milkings and so on. The town folk sleep late. So, another day has begun. There's Doc Gibbs, coming down Main Street now, coming back from that baby case. And here's his wife, coming downstairs to make breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital's named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first, long time ago in fact. She went out to visit her daughter Rebecca, who ends up marrying an insurance salesman in Canton, Ohio, and, well, she died there of pneumonia. But her body was brought back here, and she's up in the cemetery on the mountain right now, in with a whole mess of Gibbses and Hearses. She was Julia Hersey before marrying Doc Gibbs at the Congregational Church. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. There's Mrs. Webb coming downstairs to get her breakfast too. Like I said, that's Doc Gibbs. Got that call at 1:30 this morning. And here comes Joe Kroll Jr., delivering Editor Webb's sentinel.
Good morning, Doc Gibbs.
Good morning, Joe.
Somebody been sick, Doc?
No, just a pair of twins over in Polish Town.
Do you want your paper now, sir?
Yes, I'll take it. Anything serious been happening in the world since Wednesday?
Oh, yes, sir. My school school teacher, Miss Foster, is getting married to a fellow over in Concord.
I declare. How do you boys feel about it?
Well, of course, it ain't none of my business, but I think if a woman starts out to be a school teacher, she ought to stay one.
Very wise. How's your knee?
Oh, fine, Doc. I never think about it at all. Only like you said, it always tells me when it's going to rain.
Is it going to rain?
No, sir.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Has your knee ever made a mistake?
No, sir.
I want to tell you something about that boy, Joe Kroll. Joe was awful bright. Graduated high school here, head of his class. So he got a scholarship to MIT, and he graduated head of his class there too. It was all wrote up in the Boston papers at the time. Going to be a great engineer, Joe was. But the war broke out, and he died in France. All of that's education for nothing.
Get up, Bessie!
Here comes Howie Newsom, delivering the milk.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Howie.
Is somebody sick, Doc?
No, just a pair of twins over at Mrs. Grosskowski's.
Twins, eh? Sounds getting bigger every year. Come on, Bessie.
Hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Going on 17. Bessie's been all mixed up about the route ever since the Lockhart stopped taking their quart of milk every day. Wants to leave him a quart just the same. Keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Good morning, Hallie.
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs. Doc's just come down the street.
Is he? Seems like you're late today.
Yes, someone ran the separator. Don't know what it was. Stop.
Howie.
Children, time to get up.
Come on, Leslie.
George, Rebecca. Is everything all right, Frank?
Yes, I declare. Easy as kittens.
Well, sit down and drink your coffee. Bacon will be ready in a minute. You can catch a couple hours of sleep this morning, can't you?
Probably. Mrs. Wentworth is coming at 11, and I think you know what it's about too. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
All told, you won't get more than 3 hours of sleep. Frank Gibbs, I don't know what's going to become of you. I do wish I could get you to go away someplace on a real trip and take a rest. I think it would do you some good.
Children, Emily, Wally, time to get up.
I declare, you've got to speak to George. He's been no help to me at all. I can't even get him to cut me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he thinks about is that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school.
George, look sharp.
Yes, Pop.
I guess I'll go upstairs and get 40 winks.
Wally, Emily, time for school. Wally, wash yourself up good, or I'll come up there and do it myself.
What?
What dress shall I wear?
Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night. Now, I've washed and ironed the blue gingham dress for you special.
Mom, I hate that dress. Every day I go to school dressed like a sick turkey.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
Ah! George is throwing soap at me!
I'll slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
We've got a factory in our town too. Hear it? Makes blankets. Cartwright's own it, and it runs a fortune.
Children, now I won't have it. I won't have my children gobbling like wolves. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Put away your book, Wally.
Oh, Mom, by 10 o'clock, I gotta know all about Canada.
Wally, you know the rules as well as I do. No books at the table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know I am. Everyone says so. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age.
Eat your breakfast.
I'm bright too. When I'm looking at my stamp collection. I'll talk to your father about it when he's rested. Seems to me that 25 cents a week is enough for a boy your age. I declare, I don't know what you spend it on.
Oh, Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphate, that's what you'll spend it on.
Well, I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. I mean, she has more than $1.
Well, I've been saving it up gradually.
Well, dear, I do think it's nice to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I love most in the world? Do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
Oh, Mom, that's Miss Bell.
Gotta go. I don't want any more.
I gotta hurry.
Walk fast, you don't have to run. Emily, stand up straight. Wally, put
don't be scared. Nobody's gonna hurt you. Oh, good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Well, it's not that tingling feeling in my throat. I told Mr. Webb I love me being used to going to choir practice tonight.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but I can't seem to do that and stay on key. So I thought I'd sit here and share some of these beans.
Here, let me help you. Beans have been good this year.
I know. Decided to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. The children say they hate them, but I noticed they're able to get them down all winter.
Myrtle, there's something I need to tell you. Because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
Here, give me some more of those beans. Did one of those second-hand furniture men from Boston come down to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he calls on me. At first I thought he was a patient wanting to see Dr. Gibbs, and then he wormed his way into my parlor in Myrtle Webb. He offered me $350 for Grandmother Whitmore's highboy as I'm sitting here.
Why, Julia Gibbs?
He did. That old thing. It was so big I didn't even know where to put it. And I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
I don't know.
You don't know, Julia, $350? What's come over you?
Well, if I got the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a real trip, I'd tell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France.
And how's the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat around the bush a little and told him that if I get that legacy, I'm going to insist on it.
And what did he say?
Well, you know how he is. Haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he says, might make him discontented with Grover's Corners and want to go traipsing around Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years we make a trip to the battlefields of the Civil War, and that's never treat for anybody, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just loves the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb has the right mind, so from Napoleon to the Civil War, but Dr. Gibbs being the greatest expert in the country just makes him despair.
It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at the Antietam or Gettysburg. Oh, the times when I walked through those hills, stopping at every bush and pasting it all out like we were going to buy it.
Well, Julia, if that secondhand man is really serious, you buy it. And then you can see Paris all right. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see Atlantic Ocean, you know.
Well, I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only it seems to me that once in your life before you die, you want to see a country where they don't speak in English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to skip a few hours. But before we do, we want to know a little more information about the town. Kind of a scientific account, you might say. So I've asked Professor Willard of our State University to sketch me a few notes on our past history here. Is Professor Willard here? Professor! Professor Willard! Ah, yes. May I introduce Professor Willard of our State University. Professor, here, please. A few brief notes. Thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, our time here is limited.
Yes. You brief notes on what's exactly...
The town, Professor. Grover's Corners, our town, Professor.
Right. Grover's Corners. Ah, yes. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pleistocene grounds of the Appalachian Range. It is some of the oldest land in the world. We are very proud of that. A shelf of Devonian basalt crosses it with vestiges of Mesozoic shale and some sandstone outcroppings. But those are all more recent, 200, 300 million years old. A colleague of mine, Professor Williams, found some highly interesting fossils. Well, I may say unique fossils. Only 2 miles out of town in Silas Beckham's cow pasture. They can be seen at the museum or university at any time. That is, of course, at any reasonable time.
Professor, I'm afraid we don't have any time for fossils. Perhaps a few notes on the history of man here?
Of course. Anthropological data.
Exactly.
Early Amerindian stock, Cotahatchee tribes. No evidence before the 10th century of this era. Now entirely disappeared. Possible traces in 3 families, so they say. Migration toward the end of the 17th century of English brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock, for the most part. Since then, some Slav...
And the population, Professor Willard?
Well, at that time, it was between 200
The population 1901, Professor.
at the moment.
At the moment.
2,640 exactly.
Just a minute, Professor.
I was getting to that. Twins were born over there in Polish Town this morning, making the population 2,642. The postal district brings in 507 more, making a total of 3,149. Mortality and birth rates constant, but not very constant. By McFerrin's
Professor,
gauge.
thank you very much. We're all
Yes.
very much obliged to you, I'm sure.
6.032 by McFerrin's gauge.
This way, Professor.
Well,
And thank you again.
but the need
Great
of
knowing what
plants.
time, Professor.
Are you
Thank
sure?
you. I am very sure. Thank you. And now, the political and social report. Editor Webb. Mr. Webb?
Oh, he'll be here in just a minute. He just cut his hand while eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles, everyone's waiting.
Mr. Webb is publisher and editor of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our town paper, you know, and Mr. Webb, yes.
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males vote at the age of 21. Women vote indirect. We are lower middle class, sprinkling of professional men, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we are 86% Republican, 6% Democrat, 4% Socialist, the rest indifferent. And religiously, we are 85% Protestant, 12% Catholic, the rest indifferent.
And have you any comments, Editor Webb?
Well, pretty ordinary town, if you ask me. A bit better behaved than most, probably a lot duller, but our young people seem to like it here well enough. 90% of them settling down to live right here, even after they've been away to college.
And is there anyone in the audience who has a question? Yes?
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, I don't know what you'd call much. Saturday nights, the farm hands gather around at Eller Greengrowth's stable in the hall or something. We've got one or two town drunks, but well, they're always having remorses every time an evangelist comes to town. So no, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing in the household here in Grover's Corners, except in the medicine chest. Right good for a snake bite, you know, always was.
Excuse me, would you come forward where we can all hear you? What were you saying?
Is there no one aware of social injustice or industrial inequality?
Oh, everyone is. Something terrible. Seems like we're all spending most of our time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. It seems like we're all searching for a way that the diligent and sensible can rise to the top and the lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom, but that ain't easy to find. Meanwhile, we do all we can to help those that can't help themselves, and those that can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Oh, Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. At least not in the sense that you mean. Come to think of it, we've got one or two girls that play the piano down at high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. I suppose this is the place to tell you, though, that we've got a lot of pleasures of a kind here. We like the sun coming up over the mountains in the morning, and we all notice a good deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them. And we all watch the change of the seasons. Yes, everybody knows about them, but, well, those other things, you're right, ma'am. There ain't much. Robinson Crusoe, the Bible, Handel's Largo, and Whistler's Mother. But those are just about as far as we go.
So I thought. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. And now we'll go back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners, and all of the dishes have been washed. There's a sort of early afternoon calm in the town, a buzzing and a humming from the school buildings, horses dozing at hitching posts, hardly any buggies on Main Street. You all remember what that's like. Doc Gibbs is in his office, tapping people and making them say, ah. Mr. Webb is cutting his lawn over there. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. No, sir, it's later than I thought. There are the children coming home from school already.
Oh, I can't, Louise. I've got to go home and help my mother. I promised.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are?
Oh, Papa, you're terrible. One minute you're telling me to stand up straight, and the next minute you're calling me names. I just don't listen to you.
Golly, I never got a kiss from such a great lady before.
Oh, excuse me, Miss Forrest.
Go out and play in the fields, young man! You got no business playing baseball on Main Street!
Awfully sorry, Miss Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Oh, hello.
You made a fine speech in class today.
Well, I was really supposed to speak about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Corcoran had me speak about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
Yeah, say, Emily, you know, it's funny. From my room up there, I can just see your head on nights when you're doing your homework in your room.
Why? Can you?
You certainly do stick to it. I suppose you like school?
I just figured something we all have to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
Yeah, Stanley, what do you think? Maybe we'll work out a kind of telegraph from your window to mine, and maybe if I get stuck on one of those algebra problems, maybe you could give me a kind of a hint or two. Oh no, I don't mean the answer, Emily. Just a little hint.
Oh. Well, I guess hints are alright. So, if you get stuck on anything, George, you just whistle at me. I'll give you a hint or two.
You're just naturally bright, I guess.
I just figured it's the way a person's born.
Oh. Well, you see, when I grow up, I want to be a farmer. My Uncle Luke says if whenever I get old enough, I can go and start working, and if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Oh, well, yeah, I suppose I have to get going. Good afternoon, Miss Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
Thanks for the talk, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come help me shrink some of these beans. So, I noticed George Gibbs had a real conversation with you, didn't he? Why, he's growing up. How old is George going to be?
I don't know.
Well, let's see. He must be almost 16?
Mom, I made a speech in class tonight. I was very good.
Oh, you must have decided for your father at dinner. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm going to make speeches my entire life. Mama, what are you speaking of?
Try and get him a little bigger if you can.
Mama, will you answer me a question? Serious.
Seriously, dear? Not serious?
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. All my children got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Oh, well, Mama, that's not what I meant. What I mean is, am I pretty?
No, I've already told you, yes. You got a nice, young, pretty face. That's enough of that foolishness.
Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you very pretty?
Yes, I was. I was the prettiest girl in town. Next to Mamie Cartwright.
Well, but Mom, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get people interested in me?
Now, Emily, you make me tired. You're pretty enough for all normal circumstances. Come along now. Bring that bowl with you.
Oh, Mommy, you're never any help at all.
Thank you. Thank you. That'll do. We'll have to interrupt again here. Thank you, Mrs. Webb. Thank you, Emily. There are a few more things we want to explore about this town. I think this is a good time to let you know that Cartwright Interests have just begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. Had to go to Vermont for the marble, I'm sorry to say. And they've asked a friend of mine what to put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Of course, they're putting in a copy of the New York Times and the copy of Editor Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellows have found a way of painting all that reading matter with a glue, with a silicate glue We're going to make it keep for 2,000 years. We're putting in the Bible and the Constitution of the United States and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon used to have 2 million people, and all they know about them today are the names of their kings and the copies of wheat contracts and contracts for the sale of slaves. And yet, every night, all those families would sit down to supper, and the father came home from his work, and the smoke went up the chimney, same as here. Even in Greece and in Rome, all we know about the real lives of those people is what we can piece together from the joking poems and the comedies they wrote for the theater back then. So I'm going to have a copy of this play put in the cornerstone, and people 1,000 years from now can know a few simple facts about us, more than the Treaty of Versailles or the Lindbergh floods. You know what I mean? So people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up, and in our marrying, and in our living, and in our dying. Well, a good deal of time's gone by. You can hear choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. The children are home doing their schoolwork. The day is running down like a tired clock.
Now look here, everyone. Music come into the world to bring pleasure. Softer! 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 Now, get it out of your heads that music's only good when it's loud. You leave loudness to the Methodists. You couldn't beat them if you wanted to. Now again, tenors.
I can't work at all. I'm like so terrible.
Stanley, did you get the third question?
Which?
Third.
Why, of course, George. That was the easiest of them all.
I don't get it. Can you give me a hint?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The answer's in yards.
In yards, but how do you mean?
In square yards.
Oh, square yards.
Yes, George, can you see?
Yeah.
In square yards of wallpaper.
Oh, wallpaper. You see now? Thanks, Emily.
You're welcome. Why, isn't the moonlight terrible? And choir practice is going on. I think, if you hold your breath long enough, you can hear the train all the way to Quantico. Can you hear it?
What do you know?
Well, I guess I better go back and try to get some work done.
Yeah. Thanks again for your help, Emily.
Good night, George.
Night, Emily.
Now, before I forget it, who among you can come in this Thursday and sing at Fred Hershey's with me? Show your hands. That'll be right, guys. We'll do the same music we did last month with Jane Trowbridges. Now we'll do Art Thou Weary, Art Thou Dangling. It's a question, people. Make it talk.
Oh, George, could you come down a minute? Yes, Bob? Make yourself comfortable, George. I'll only keep you a minute. George, how old are you?
I? I'm 16. Almost 17.
And what do you want to do after school's over?
Why, you know, Pop. I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
And you'd be willing, will you, to wake up early, to milk and feed the stock, to hoe and hay all day?
Why, sure I would. What do you mean, Pop?
Well, when I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound. And what do you think it was? It was your mother chopping wood. You see, your mother, who already wakes up early to clean your clothes and cook your meals, but she still had to go out back and chop wood. I guess she just got tired of asking you to do it. And you still eat her meals and put on the clothes she keeps nice for you. But then you run off and play baseball, like she's some hired girl we keep around the house but don't really like very much. Well, I know all I need to do is call your attention to it. Here's a handkerchief, son. And also, I've decided to raise your spending money by 25 cents a week. Not, of course, for chopping wood for your mother, because that's a present which you give her, but because you're getting older, and I imagine you'd find plenty of things to do with it.
Thanks, Pop.
Tomorrow's your payday. You can count on it. Rebecca will probably want some too. I wonder what could have happened to your mother. Choir practice never was as late as this before.
Well, it's only 8:30, Pop.
I don't know why she's in that old choir anyways. She hasn't any more voice than an old crow. And it's about time to go to bed, don't you think?
Yes, Pop.
Good night, Martha. Good night, Mr. Foster.
I'll tell Mr. Webb about it. I know I want to put it in the paper.
Good night, Ariel. My, it's late. Oh, would you look at that moon, Myrtle Webb? Oh, tis potato weather for sure.
Naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of others. But really, now we are going. It's the worst man there ever was in this town.
What?
Simon Stimson.
Now, Luella.
But Juliet had the orders to the church, drink and drunk, year after year. You know he was drunk tonight.
Now, Luella, we all know about Mr. Stimson, and we all know about the troubles he's been through. And Dr. Ferguson knows it too. And if Dr. Ferguson keeps him there on his job, the only thing the rest of us can do is just not to notice it.
Not to notice it, but it's getting worse.
No, it isn't, Luella. I've been in the choir twice as long as you have. It's not happening nearly as often. My, they blew up bad on a night like this. I better hurry. The children won't be up until all hours. Good night, Luella.
Can you get home safe, Luella?
It's his Friday day. I can see Mr. Soames scowling at the window now. You'd think we'd been to the dance for the men for a while.
Well, we had a real good time.
You're late enough.
Why, Frank, it ain't any later than usual.
And you were stopping at the corner to gossip with a lot of heads.
Now, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come out so the healers show up in the moonlight. Isn't that wonderful? What'd you do all the time I was away?
Oh, I read, as usual. What were the girls gossiping about tonight?
Well, believe me, Frank, there is something to gossip about.
Simon Stimson, far gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. Oh, how will that end, Frank? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I reckon I know more about Simon Stimson's affairs than anybody in this town. Some people just ain't made for small town life. We don't know how that'll end, but there's really nothing we can do about it. Let's go in.
No, not yet, Frank. I'm worried about you.
About what?
Well, I think it's my duty to make plans for you to get real rest and change, and if I get that legacy, well, I'm going to insist on it.
Now, Julia, let's not go for this again.
Oh, Frank, you're just unreasonable.
I gave George a piece of my mind tonight. I reckon you'll have your wood chopped for a while, anyhow.
Oh, there always seems like there's so many things to pick up. You know, Miss Fairchild locks her front door every night. All the people up in that part of the town do.
They're getting citified. That's the trouble with them. They ain't got anything fit to burgle, and everyone knows it.
Oh, Rebecca, what are you doing here?
Oh, let me just look a minute.
Use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there.
George, do you know what I think, do you? I think maybe the moon's getting nearer and nearer, and there'll be a big explosion.
Becca, you don't know anything. The moon are getting nearer. The people who sit up all night watching the telescope are seeing it. I mean, they tell about it in the papers.
George, is the moon shining on Canada and South America and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
9:30. Most of the lights in town are out. No, there's Constable Warren checking a few doors on Main Street. And Editor Webb, after putting his newspaper to bed.
Evening, Bill. Evening, Mr. Webb. Wait a minute. Yep. All quiet tonight? Well, Simon Stimson's rolling around a bit. Just saw his wife moving out to hunt for him, so I let him be out the way. There he is now.
Evening, Simon. Can we walk a ways with you? Well, the town seems to have settled down for the night pretty well. Perhaps we ought to, too. Can I walk a ways with you? Good night.
I don't know how that's going to end, Mr. Webb.
Oh, well, he's seen a peck of trouble, one thing after another. Oh, and Bill, if you see my boy smoking any cigarettes, give him a word for me, will you? It's an awful lot.
Oh, I don't think he smokes no cigarette, Mr. Webb. Leastways, no more than 2 or 3.
Yes, well, I hope. Good night.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Myrtle? Is that you?
No, it's me, Papa.
Emily? What are you doing out of bed?
Well, I don't know. Moonlight's so wonderful. You smell Mrs. Gibbs's heliotrope? Can you smell it?
Yes. Haven't any troubles on your mind, have you, Emily?
Bubbles, Papa. No.
Well, enjoy yourself. But don't let your mother catch you.
Good night, Papa.
Good night, Emily.
George, I never told you about that letter Jane Crawford got from the minister when she was ill. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope the address was like this. It said, Jane Crawford, Crawford Farm, Grover's Corners, Suffolk County, New Hampshire, United States of America.
Oh, what's weird about that?
But listen, it's not finished. United States of America, continent of North America, Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God! That's what it said on the envelope.
Well, what do you know?
And the postman brought it just the same.
Well, what do you know?
That's all the first act. We'll have a 10-minute intermission.